Your first album, Light Upon the Lake, was released 3 years ago. If you listen to that album now, what do you hear?
Wow.
I haven't listened to it in a long time.
The last time I listened to it all the way through was right before mastering our newest record. And I remember just thinking like, wow, there's a lot of like mistakes that we left in that I don't think now we would have left them in. Like,
For example,
it's a jankier and almost garagier record than I feel like I even thought at the time. And I feel like our new record is like, I don't know, it's not like cleaner or anything, but it's like, it's well thought out, and the performances are maybe a little bit stronger on the new music. So I feel like we were figuring out how to be a band still on the first record.
And in what way could you tell, music-wise, that you were figuring out how to be a band? So certain parts that you say, well, I've listened to it, and now in hindsight, with this album, I should have done it differently.
I wouldn't change anything.
Yeah,
No, I'm not changing, but I mean the bits and the pieces you said that.
Well, I think if we were writing those songs now, the performances would just be a little bit more intriguing or something. Like, I feel like we were leaning on, and it has to do with like where music was at the time, I think, as well. Like, we were leaning on just like a little bit of like a slacker, garage rocky vibe that was like still kind of prevalent in music. And nowadays, I feel like if we were writing those same songs, they would be a little bit more like punchy. We would just make sure that the performances could hold up forever, because that's the only thing that I feel like is maybe lacking on the last record, is that we got the performances good enough, but we didn't get them like really up there. And I feel like on our newest record that we're like, the performances are still really holding up for me every time I listen to it. So yeah.
Do you feel the same?
I'm not really sure. I haven't really listened to the old album in a long time. I think that now, playing as a live band, the old songs are being informed by the new ones. So
Yeah.
I think the way we're playing the older songs are a little more like similar to the newer ones, just because it's been 3 years, and yeah.
So how special was it for you that you released your first album? How people reacted to it? How special was it?
I mean, it's amazing. I think we consider ourselves very lucky people, and just are happy to be here, anywhere, playing music. So, yeah.
But did you expect, for example, you should know all the songs we liked the songs?
No, you can never expect it, because like music it's always been a really unpredictable industry to like get into or whatever. But I don't know. I mean, like, our hearts were and still are in the right place. And like, when we started this band, the whole idea was just to play as many shows as we could and play the best shows as we possibly could, and play and write the best songs that we possibly could. And when we saw that it was actually happening and we were fulfilling it, writing like Golden Days and every song that we wrote in the beginning, it was like, this feels really strong and really good. I don't know. There was no agenda. It was just like we were looking inside of ourselves, and it's like, how do we create something that makes a lot of sense to us and gets stuck in our heads and stuff, and then just play good shows and be good people. Just like try to be nice people.
What do you hear? What sort of people do you hear on the first album?
With ourselves?
Yeah.
Man, you're asking the deepest questions I could have imagined.
Sorry.
Yeah. They're good questions, but...
what type of people do we hear when we...
No, I mean, the first album, and now you have especially when you create a lot of albums, it's always nice to see what sort of...
Like the timestamp.
Timestamps.
Yeah.
But if you're not, then I have another question too. But
honestly, really happy with what I hear. Like, I'm like, man, there's a lot of honest vulnerability on the first record, and I'm happy that we did that, because, our world is gonna end probably pretty soon.
2050.
2050.
It's
World's
over.
about to end.
Oceans
And
are
why
gonna be
not?
dead.
Why not fucking play your cards? Just lay the the fucking deck of cards out or
Oh, yeah.
whatever, you know?
But are you
Why not?
seriously about this? I mean, do you really
Yeah.
think? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like, I guess with our newest record, we're like also trying to be pretty honest, and you know.
No, but I mean the world being in a bad place, and
I believe that
Yeah.
the world is probably going to end in like 20. I don't know when, but it's like we might live to see the end of the world straight up.
yeah.
I mean,
Is that a good thing or a bad thing?
Do you look outside and like, I don't know, the weather is just wild. It's bad. The climate change is real. Is what we're trying to say.
Yeah.
Whitney, I'm fully behind climate change being a real fucking thing.
So what do you think needs to be done?
I think it's probably too late. Prevention, it's past the point of prevention. It's
No, but
just,
sometimes people say, well, you have to have, I think, so many trees need to be planted. I think
oh yeah, I mean, I think
Ethiopia, I think, already planted several
yeah,
millions.
Yeah.
I think at this point it's more of a process of slowing than it is fixing. I don't think there's a way to change the fact that we're going to destroy the earth, but there's a way to slow it down.
There is a way to slow down. And like, it's also weird because it's like that messes with your whole idea of mortality in the first place. Like, I don't know. I've always kind of had a bit of a mindset where I'm like, I'm not going to live until I'm 80 years old.
How come?
I don't know. I don't. I love life and I'm happy to be living, but I don't know. I just always thought that. The people that I look up to the most, that aren't like rock stars or anything, but just people that I've loved and grew up with, had the same mindset. And I was like, you know what? Like, you don't need to live until you're 80 years old to have a fulfilled life. You just need to impact people, and you need to be, you know, try to make yourself happy as well. But
I think not believing that you're going to live forever is the important thing.
Yeah.
Understanding that one day it's going to be over, and embracing every moment you have while you're still alive. That's what that is. It's like
that forever is
Yeah.
going to turn around. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but that I think it's also, if you have this mentality, then it's easier to be honest.
Yeah.
yeah.
Because that's the thing. I don't even know why we're doing this interview, because you could just talk enough about our record and probably say profound shit all over the place. You're asking great questions. Yeah. And honesty is like a fucking huge part of our lives. And, you know, I mean, we're like, where we're from, like, it seems like the world is completely ending right now. You know what I mean?
Can you explain a bit more? What's happening?
I mean, we don't like talking about politics, but it's like, obviously, politically, our country is like fucking eating itself. You know what I mean? It's like the worst. We've never lived through this type of leadership. This type of leadership is absolutely like disgusting to see.
One joke, but if it gets too hot in America, then you just buy Greenland.
Yeah, okay.
Greenland.
Nice one. Yeah.
No, but for us it's a bit strange to see, because what I was thinking, you had Obama, and you had that sort of change, especially his first term, when he was actually elected.
Yeah.
What happened that it took such a switch? How come?
I don't think there's any way to describe the switch that's taking place, but it's also it's
It is happening all
Brexit,
over the world.
And what's the other country that we were in the other day that they were talking about? Was it Netherlands?
Well, no, it's not. I think Netherlands is actually.
Yeah,
Y'all have a pretty stable,
peaceful,
decent,
very
peaceful government. We were in Italy when we were talking about this.
Could be.
Yeah.
There's also like Brazil. There's a couple different countries that are.
Right
Paris,
wing is just like
Is Paris?
exploding.
How
Or
are you?
France.
How are you in history?
How good are we at history?
I'm bad. I'm bad.
Now, for example, if
Terrible.
you could say that what is happening right now, if you look on the scale of history, is maybe what happened prior to
It's repeating itself.
First World War. People are getting more nationalistic, more fascistic. So maybe can it be that it's going in cycles? That maybe within 10 years we're having a international leadership, for example.
Yeah, but except there's a weird, there's like an overtone which is that the world is probably actually going to end, which means the cycles are fucking meaningless.
Also,
you know what I mean? It's like, why not change things right now? Because you're about to fuck it all up, like for all of us. I don't know. I don't want to get too preachy.
With the cyclical kind of theory, I think the internet and social media has exacerbated like right side politics to an extent that has never happened before. Maybe I think that like social media
is like a completely new
to spread hate
thing
on the internet has completely changed, and anonymously spread hate on the internet and put it in this void where like you don't have to be responsible for spreading hatred, has completely changed the game and allows people to do things that are much worse than possibly before. Like there's no accountability on the internet.
There's a lot of the people that are going and fucking shooting up schools and churches and shit in America. It's all of that hate is like breeding in a really dangerous way on the internet, on like fucking 8chan and shit, like on these message boards.
8chan. It's 4chan, but
it started with
4chan,
and then I don't know. I'm not even really privy to it at all, but like. So the internet is breeding like some really dangerous hatred, at least in America. Yeah. There's shootings.
The most recent
every month.
Yeah, the most recent shooting in El Paso, which was like 2 weeks ago. He posted his manifesto on 8chan, which is like something I never would have. We would never know about it until tragedy happened. But there are these breeding sites of that kind of racial and nationalistic hatred for what just.
This
so fucked up shit. So much fucked up shit.
But how do you stay? How do you stay? How do you stay optimistic?
Well, you just come up with a melody, and you're like, I really like this melody, and that's always kind of been the whole formula for us, which is like, the first record, the world didn't know that it was in a bad place yet, I guess. But we still kept the lyrical content a bit sad and downtrodden or whatever. But it's always been just coming up with a melody that we think is like uplifting. Because that's all we really care about. It's like, we like truly sad songs sometimes, but like we would never want to form a project around that or write a whole record around that. We like writing more playful melodies, and that's maybe, that's like an invigorating part of life, I guess.
What was the first song that you wrote for this album that you think, well, this is going to be the direction of the album? Sometimes, most of the time you can tell. Now I have the song. This is going to be the direction.
Well, like coming up with the chorus of "Forever Turned Around" was like obviously important for us, but I don't know. There was a bunch of different moments. Like
why specific? Because the album is called "Forever Turned Around." Why specific? When you wrote this chorus, did you know, well, this is going to be the album title, for example, or?
We just thought the phrase was really good, and then we slowly figured out what it meant to us afterwards. Like, we knew it was catchy, and then it was one of the last things that we finished was actually writing the verses to that song. Which is like, it was a really fragmented process, all in all, but I don't know, we just loved the term and loved the phrase and loved.
When did you figure out what it actually meant for you?
I think we're still figuring it out.
What does it mean to you now?
Right now. Right now.
Well, it's a phrase that like allows people to you take what you want from it,
I think no matter what, though, it involves some restlessness, anxiety, and an understanding of time slipping away from you in some manner, whether it's romantic, platonic, political, or even just watching the world passing by. There's something about that phrase that's kind of universally sad, but also accepting the change that's happening.
Yeah. And you released your previous album in 2016. When did you actually the whole bunch of the songs for this album? When were they written?
We finished writing them, I think, in January of last year. They were probably all done. So January of 2019.
How long did it What was this?
A year and a half. We toured for 2 years and then wrote for like a year. So it's been 3
It's
years.
the same.
But, yeah.
I think when we get together to make a record, that's how long it takes.
A year.
It's always like committing to a whole year of, you know,
What did,
eventual fulfillment.
what did touring do for the writing and recording of the show?
I think it was good for the writing, actually. I mean, like, pretty bad for our mental health, probably.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say.
But when we fully started making stuff that we cared about, it was like, oh, I fully understand why we toured that much. We became better musicians, and like our instincts maybe got a little bit better, but no, yeah, there was like touring for that long, like definitely created like there was like a 4 or 5 month period where afterwards we were like, we just want to bang this record out and like fucking like, you know, you think that like you're gonna write an entire record in like 2 weeks or something, and you just slowly realize like, no, that's not how it's gonna happen, buddy. Like you know, your inner dialogue is really like, you have to suppress those feelings, I guess, and then finally, after banging your head against the wall forever, like you come up with something that you like.
What was the turning point?
I think there was a turning point. I think we really just kind of kept working. I think there was
Writing Giving Up was pretty.
Giving Up was early though.
It was quick.
Giving Up was really easy to write.
Yeah.
But that was early on. That was like the first song that we really felt. I think it was like you were mentioning it earlier. Like when there was like a song we finally like, this is definitely going to be on the record. Giving Up was probably one of the first ones. But I think for both of us, it was like really just trying to understand who we were as people and how we wanted to tell the story of the loss of our identities through touring in a way that's not actually talking about touring or breaking up with someone or like anything like that. And I think it was pretty challenging for us to kind of describe the way we were feeling in a song for a while, and it just took 8 months until we really felt like we had achieved, you know, that description of kind of like the restlessness and weird transitions we'd been going
And
through.
I can imagine that lyric-wise, it's harder to write good lyrics when you've been in a tour for one.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
So you had to live again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the
Yeah.
thing. It's like, yeah, you know what we're talking about. Like, you have to like establish a real life in a home base, and then because the lyrics are, at least for me, I mean, I have to sing them like 300 times over the next year, and you know, countless more times probably, but you know, it's a thing that seems like the most immediately like we have to make sure that these check out forever, like which is a hard task. And the songs themselves, I mean, like the melodies and everything is like what we truly care about, but lyrics are something that I think this time around we tasked ourselves quite heavily to make sure that we loved every single word, which is pretty tough. Like we would throw away lines that we thought were good immediately, and then, you know, we would just sit on it for a night and be like, like we gotta completely change it. It would be tough.
Yeah, but also
it was
like
a tough
even like this festival, it's like we're not gonna go home to America and write a song about being in the backstage at Lowlands.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, you need to actually experience something like human, like even though we're all people here, like this isn't like a human experience that's like relatable and universal
At
and
all.
holds any weight. It's a beautiful place and like the festival's amazing, but it's not necessarily like inspiring to like write a song about this experience. You need to like have something like that kind of touches your soul a little deeper. Than
You have to have like a uniquely human experience, which this isn't human to us, I don't think.
Is the last question, is there one lyric or part of lyrics, maybe lines on this album that you say, well, this is something that really, well, we put many time, much effort in, and there's something that we couldn't have written on the first album. Do you have an example?
There's a couple. There's two. One of them is There's Fire Burning in the Trees, Maybe Life is the Way it Seems, On Valley's My Love, which I think maybe pertains a little bit more to like being in America because there are a bunch of crazy wildfires, and like a low key wildfire that no one really talked about that we actually were in Oregon, like by Mount Hood, because some kid lit a fucking sparkler off and literally sparked an entire wildfire, and now he's in jail actually. But but then there's also on Song for Tide, "Tell Me Everything Is Just Beginning. I don't feel alive, but I've been living," is one of the lines that like at the time we felt a little weird about, and then after the fact I was like, that's my favorite line that I think we've ever come up with. And both those lines were like 1-2s. Like either I came up with the first one and he kind of led the charge on the second one, or he came up with the first one and I was like, no, I think this needs to be the second half or something. Yeah. But those 2 lines.
I have to stop.
Yeah.
Hey,
Thank you for your
thank
time.
you.
Oh yeah. Much love.
Yes.
Wow, that interview went all over the place. That was sick.
It's deep.